Welcome to Parks and Cons, companion podcast and video, in this case, to the parksandcons.com website and YouTube channel, where we discuss cons, theme parks, collecting, and other fun stuff. I'm your host, Sean, and I'm here with Carmel.
Hi there.
Parks and Cons, your on-the-spot podcast and video show, in this case, again, where we take you to the heart of the action of the best conventions and themed entertainment events around. So this is a little bit different. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher podcast, the intro's a tad bit different. What we're doing here, because we are in that big march to San Diego Comicon, we are kind of taking over the Con Talk show and really changing the format around a little bit, doing double duty to utilize it for both the YouTube channel and for our podcast. And so on this particular show, we are going to be talking all about San Diego Comic-Con tips of things to do to prepare for the convention. And then if you are sticking with us for the YouTube channel, if you are over on our talk show there, you'll also have the Under the Con, where we talk Phoenix Comic Con as well as Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get to the list. So we will have a variety. We already have a few videos up on the YouTube channel. We have an overall kind of visual guide to the outside of San Diego Comic-Con Convention Center area. We've got the swag and freebies video up. The Hasbro video is coming. We'll have a series of kind of videos and podcasts like this where we break down different categories and talk about things, for example, on the convention floor to off the convention floor. But today, what we're talking about is all focused on what to be doing a couple weeks out from Comic-Con. So as we sit here, we are bearing down. We've just entered into July. As we're recording this, today is July 2nd, so we're right there. And we're going to talk about things to do before you leave your house for Comic-Con. Then in future podcasts and on the Con Talk TV show, or I should say YouTube show, we'll get into more categories beyond that. So let's start out with our list then. And so first up on that list is now is a good time. And I should say with this list, these are all things in advance of Comic-Con again, but that they're not in any specific order from that. Just all things before you get in your car, get on the plane, whatever it might be for you. But first up in that is making sure to start looking into making dinner reservations now in the Gaslamp, if that is something that's going to be of interest to you, in particular if you have a larger group. Gaslamp Quarters has a lot of great places to eat. There's a few that we like in particular. It's a great follow also their Twitter account at Gaslamp Quarters. They're constantly posting things, usually around the San Diego Comic-Con time in particular, different sales, different deals, specials, things like that. And so the Gaslamp, I mean, if you've been to Comic-Con before, and as we're starting this out, the people that listen to our podcast, watch our videos, it really ranges. We have people that are veterans of 20 plus years at San Diego Comic-Con and people that are first-time attendees, and oftentimes it lends itself more to those first-time attendees or those people that are maybe have been there less than 5 years that are still looking for every little tip that they can get. But this being one, you know, is a good time is to start perusing, and even if you don't go to the lengths of making a reservation, because sometimes people are concerned because obviously things will be announced all the way up until the time that we're actually at Comic-Con. So there can be a fear of like, well, I don't want to make a reservation for Thursday night because what if this off-site thing is going on? At least having a kind of plan of some places you definitely want to hit. We have probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 places that are always kind of musts for us during that 8 days that we're out there for, because we get out there the Monday before, 8 days of San Diego Comic-Con for us, and there's usually at least one place a day that we really want to eat. So having that list, kind of knowing those places you want to go, and again, looking into if they accept reservations if you're able to make that commitment.
Yeah, and that's, again, mostly important if you do have a large group. It's especially helpful because it is so difficult to maneuver just individually. So when you throw in an extra 10 people with you, it's a good thing to have set places where you're going to be meeting. So you'll end up splitting up on the floor because it's impossible to stick together in a group that large. But if you know that at 7 o'clock we're meeting at the strip club in the Gaslamp, then everybody knows that's where you're going to meet, even if all else fails, if cell phones die, if whatever happens, we know we have this one meeting place. So even if you don't have reservations, having a meeting place is a good thing to do. And if you are looking at a place that you want a big group to meet at and they don't accept reservations, then hopefully someone's willing to sacrifice an hour of their time and they can head up there early and get everybody signed in before, so that everybody doesn't waste their time just waiting in line for a meal. But that said, there are a lot of food options, so if you know that there's a group that you want to meet, do that. If you are going to fly by the seat of your pants while you're there, which sometimes is the only way to do it, then you know that you're going to be waiting if you're going to be going to a restaurant, a sit-down restaurant. and you'll have a long line if it's going to be a counter service place, but you just know that going in.
We just wrapped up in Orlando at Disney World and Universal, but while we were in Disney World, we were traveling, and the total group was 11, and the youngest being a 10-month-old. And so interest varied greatly of what people wanted to do, but as you point out, is similar with Comicon, though, the idea is that having those set meeting places in terms of meals can be a good time to come back together. So if you are with that larger group, you know, those people are going to chase exclusives, and these people are waiting for Hall H, and then you have those common meals as meeting times. So anyway, now's a good time to start looking into that. And then from that, then another big thing now in terms of looking into things is if you've ever thought of getting a commission, now can be a good time of signing up for that. Artist Alley is a prolific part of Comicon, although Hall H and Hollywood really kind of often overshadow that. At the same time, within San Diego Comic-Con's Artist Alley, you have some of the all-time great artists there. Now, not all of them are doing commissions, not all of them are in residence there at Artist Alley, but you've got a lot of great options there. So now is a time to start thinking about that if that is of interest to you. We've gotten commissions before. We've never done the advanced booking. I do know people that do that. For us, it's never been something that's such a priority that we need to get it. We're also very fortunate in that we cover a lot of conventions and we come across many of these artists. So, you know, we would never be battling out for George Perez at San Diego Comic-Con because we'd get him at Phoenix Comic-Con or Amazing Las Vegas or whatever the show might be. But that said, it can make a really nice souvenir for you. If it's something you've never done in particular, it might be something you want to look into. If you don't plan out ahead, you can always check each day as you make your way through the con to see who's open, but many of them do book, and we have had people in the past that they were disappointed because they wanted to get a certain artist to do something, and then they realized they were booked up before they even ever got to the convention. So there isn't any one list that we know of where all of the artists, 'cause that's a common question we get, like one place where we know who gives commissions. Our friend Evic at Evico, EVICO. He is probably about one of the best people to ask. Obviously, anything that's known about Comic-Con, whether it be an Artist Alley, exclusives, offsites, if you go to sdccblog.com, I mean, they are really the master of all info. Every artist that says anything about where they'll be at an Artist Alley would be there, so that is a great place for all information. But again, now's a good time to think about it, and if you are going to be thinking about it now, now's a good time to budget for it because it can be quite expensive. I mean, it depends, again, the artist, their history, their pricing, but usually these are things you can find out in advance. You can go on Twitter, hit the artist up even there and say, hey, are you doing commissions? How do I sign up? And it just becomes an easy way to communicate with them.
Yeah, so especially if there's a specific artist you're wanting a commission from, yeah, follow them on Twitter, ask them. A lot of them have their websites, or a lot of the artist community prefers Instagram because that's more of a visual social media. So be sure that if there is someone specific that you are looking into them ahead of time and start that line of communication now. If you're just wanting a commission it doesn't matter who necessarily you're getting it from, then yeah, you can just walk the aisles and I'm sure there'll be someone who's available. But if there is someone specific, don't be disappointed. Plan ahead and get those reservations set up ahead of time.
All right, next step, make sure to let your bank or credit card company know in advance if you're planning to make big purchases at the convention center or anywhere in the San Diego area. It's a classic tale of getting down there, making big purchases, and then having cards declined because the bank's detected as fraud because it's odd that all of a sudden this big purchase. We've had it come up with us at the Hasbro booth. It's a huge inconvenience when you're trying to call your bank and step off to the side while all the madness is going on. Hopefully you get signal, you know, and it's a really stressful situation that can easily be avoided by just giving them the heads up in advance. Just like traveling to another country, a lot of times it's not thought of with San Diego because it's not that far off or remote of a location for people like us that just live, you know, an hour's drive away. But that being said, it has picked up on ours before as being an odd situation or fraud, and we've had to call in and deal with all that. So definitely now, even if you're at all thinking that you might have, I mean, it could even be your hotel room that, you know, any hassle. Comic-Con's stressful. The last thing you need is to add more stress to your plate. Obviously, that's why you'd be watching a video like this or listening to a podcast like this. And so it's an easy way to avoid it. Give that call to the bank, credit card company ASAP.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in Hasbro, if you do find yourself in that line and that does happen, that's probably the most convenient place to have that happen because they do have so many registers set up and it happens a lot. So they're used to having people step aside. I think it happened as recently as last year for us because I think our intention was to pay cash when we hit the Hasbro line, but whatever happened, we were able to get in line early, but we didn't have the cash on us, so I go to swipe the card and it's declined, and so I have to step aside and going through our bank's whole fraud system and trying to talk to someone in the madness is really frustrating, but those employees are great. Now, if you're at a smaller booth where they don't have 6 or 7 registers going, either you're going to be holding that line up and upsetting a lot of people, or you're going to lose out on your exclusive and they're not going to be as understanding. They're just going to have you step aside and you've lost out, and whatever time you put into it is gone. So definitely call or carry cash, one or the other. Obviously that's a lot of, depending on the purchase, it may be a lot of cash and you don't want to carry that on you, so at least let your banks know, because it's just, it's embarrassing and it's frustrating and it takes up time, and time is a precious asset when you're down there, so you don't want to lose out on it, and you could have avoided it at all.
Definitely. And speaking of assets, it's very important to make your friends assets, anyone you're traveling with really, at Comic-Con. And so in that vein, make sure everyone that is part of your group has a Twitter account and is monitoring Twitter. Information moves super fast at Comic-Con. It's moving super fast already a few weeks out from Comic-Con, and it does every year. But when you're at the con, the info is going to be snapping along super fast. Everyone's going to miss things, even if you have a team of 10 people watching the hashtag or watching the follow list. It's going to move along, you're going to miss things, and that's fine. But the point being is the more people you have monitoring, the better. Now, sometimes people are a little scared or intimidated by Twitter. Just make the account. It takes not even 5 minutes, probably 2 minutes, 1 minute. They don't need to ever tweet anything, but just make sure everyone in your group has that app on their phone, has a Twitter account, and can just scroll through, give them who to follow. Obviously, various accounts are going to have different information. I mean, the SDCC blog account is going to have info. We will have info. Evico will have info. Outside Comic-Con will have info. There'll be a lot of info flowing out there. Some groups are there more for that kind of recycling of news. Some are going to be there more focused on what's going on Hall H. There's all these different groups that are going to be at Comic-Con putting information out there. It's up to you what you want to know, but that said, the more eyes watching, the better, and it's a really easy thing to do. And once they get done with Comic-Con, they can either delete their account or just leave it sitting there till next year or the next event you're at. It can be helpful just going to theme parks to have everybody watching different threads of accounts as well. So I highly suggest having a Twitter account. It's the best place the information will flow. If you're only a Facebook person or Instagram person right now, just make a Twitter account. Get those follows in and just make it a routine to kind of scroll through a few times a day, a few times an hour, a few times every minute, depending on what your ability is and your interest level is.
Yeah, and definitely having that group of people is going to help to cover your bases. You never know when you're going to lose reception and aren't able to refresh your page, and something big may be going on, and if you have other people with you who are also interested in the same things, then it obviously just betters your chances. And also, if you are spread out across the floor, if something pops up on one end of the convention center, maybe that whoever's down there can may be able to get an extra whatever is being given away if you're on the other side of the floor, because a lot of things, if you're not in that immediate area, you're just not going to get there in time.
Yeah.
So having people who are helping you monitor that and monitor where things are being given out and monitor what's going on, the more of you there are, the better your chances of getting whatever it is that's being given out.
Right.
So.
And that leads into our next tip, which is all about autograph options. And it's because some of my favorite memories of Comic-Con are these surprise signings that just pop up and appear. And social media is a way to get the word out. I mean, I know when we come across one of these surprise signings, we immediately tweet it out and put it out there. But one year walking by what was the CBS booth at that time, and LL Cool J was there, and there was no line. And I was just on my way to, I forget what it even was, but it was just a real quick, 5-minute walk away. And like on the way back, it's like, oh, and now I've got this autograph from LL Cool J, and it was just like this surreal kind of thing that only would happen at San Diego Comic-Con. But in advance, it's a good idea to research autograph options, see if you can come up with themes. It's good for condensing space, and it's also good for making sure you have with you what you need. Maybe there's one comic that you want to get signed by several people. Maybe there's one trade paperback, an omnibus, a t-shirt, the program for this year's San Diego Comic-Con, whatever it might be. Now, do be aware there are many booths. For example, the WB booth, they will normally, in fact, I think all the time, will give you a poster that they will have the talent signed. So if you win, to be able to see the Teen Titans Go voice cast, or you win to be able to see someone from, the group from Arrow or something like that, they're going to give you a set thing that gets signed, kind of an autograph souvenir, if you will. But they're not going to sign something from somewhere else, So for us, as we're trying to, track down talent from the Flash cast or Arrow that we've got a lot of signatures already on a poster. It really doesn't do us any good to bring that to Comicon, because we know even if we decide to fight for tickets to win a WB contest and then get in the line, we're not going to be able to get them to sign what we want them to sign. But that said, we have had other experiences there where it has been fun, and we have that. In fact, the reason the Arrow and the Flash posters started was because of winning those sorts of things at WonderCon and getting them to sign there. So keep in advance, think about those themes, a good way to condense packing space, and also just a way to kind of unify and have one piece of memorabilia maybe that you kind of commemorates the trip and that you can take care of and keep precious, rather than having 15 different things signed by in different places.
Yeah, so in advance, keep track of what groups are going to be there that you are interested in, what artists, whoever it is that you're interested in, and start keeping track of when they're going to be at the con. And then once you get there, if they're going to be signing at one of the bigger booths like the WB booth or Entertainment Earth, whatever those booths are, go not necessarily first thing when you get to the convention, but go pretty early and ask, because lots of times they'll have their signing schedules, but they may not have them posted, or they may not have them out in the open. But if you ask someone, they may be able to give you a printed paper, or at least direct you to where those schedules are at. So yeah, keep track of who you're interested in, what days are going to be there, and then go to those booths and do a little more research and make sure that you're going to be wherever it is you need to be. Again, because those a lot of those, their drawings or their wristbands that you have to get first thing in the morning, even though the signing's not till 2. And if you know they're signing at 2, but you show up at 1:30, you're not getting it, more than likely. So yeah, just do your research ahead of time, and then once you get there, do a little bit more research so that you know what you're doing and at what time you need to be where.
And in that same idea of planning ahead of time for, signings, for autograph tickets being handed out, for where to go to get the thing signed, what's really important is that you know the map like the back of your hand. And so the next tip being, familiarize yourself with the floor plan to the extent where you don't ever need to look at the floor plan again once you're at Comic-Con. We will do actually a separate video. We did this last year. People liked it quite a bit, but we'll kind of go through and talk about the entire floor plan and kind of point you in the right direction of where to line up for things and strategies of where to go on the floor, whether you're looking for swag or exclusives or whatever it might be. But the first part of that is just knowing the floor, knowing where the various booths are. A more advanced thing that we'll talk about later is kind of knowing traffic patterns, because one of the things that we know when we first bust onto the floor every morning is what alleyways are going to get most clogged, and we'll talk about that again in a separate video. But first up, just know where these booths are. Where is the DC booth, the Marvel booth, the Hasbro booth, whatever the booths are that interest you, where are they, and knowing them. And then later on, as I said, a separate video, we'll talk about some of the more sophisticated stuff of knowing, you may not be interested in the Marvel booth, but it's important that you know how clogged the alleyways in front of the Marvel booth get, because if you're trying to make your way across that exhibit hall, you don't want to get caught up in that madness if it's not even something you're after.
And obviously you're not going to know where every vendor is, but you should know the vendors that you're most interested in on that map. But even if you're not interested in the big WB booth or the big Entertainment Earth booth or the big Star Wars area, at least know where they're at, because they are so tall that you can use them as kind of points to help direct you and orient yourself when you're on the floor. Because if you know that it's somewhere near WB, you can look up and see that there's some sort of banner or something up on top that you can see from most of the floor. Because once you're in the muck with everybody, it's kind of hard to even sometimes see the number of what row you're on. So especially if you're my height, because I'm super short and it's hard to even see above people's backs. So if I can look up and I can orient myself that way, I find it very helpful. So know if it's a specific vendor, know where that specific vendor is, but at least know where the big booths are so you can help orient yourself and figure out at least what part of the floor you're at and where you're trying to go.
And now let's talk about now being on the floor and what to do in terms of carrying things in bags, because there's a lot of different opinions on what bags to carry. If you followed along with San Diego Comic-Con in the past, you know that the WB bags are always gifted to people at registration, and so you get those. Those have changed a lot over the years. There's the old school big bags that were quite long and you kind of hoist them this way. There's the newer school ones that are kind of more mini backpacks. Everybody has their opinion a lot, and we'll talk about that. Depends also on height and things like that. For me, some things that I'm carrying, first off, a backpack, very important to me. We actually have a video on our website. If you just head over to the convention section tab on our website, and you'll see off to the side there's information, a whole little video, instructional video about what we want in our backpacks or what we kind of pack there. I want another bag that's yay high or so if I can, something smaller, more compact, easy to carry. In the past it's been like the Walking Dead bags or the Blood Factory bags. It doesn't have to be any certain special bag, but something that's really easy to carry things right there. And then I do want a WB bag, and for myself I want an old school WB bag, like 2012 or earlier I believe are the ones, and they're super long and they hang there, but they're easy to just stash a lot of things into. In addition to that, I'll have a poster tube. So it's quite a few things to carry. The poster tube can go inside the bag. The other smaller bag can go inside the WB bag. So it can kind of condense. We also park at the convention center, so we try to have in the car other WB bags to trade out as things get filled and drop things off, so it's never carrying too much if it becomes cumbersome. It's nice with the poster tubes to have a second poster tube back at the room. That way as you get posters at the show each day when you come back to the room, you can take them out and keep them all in one nice spot in the room and kind of make a way of kind of combining all those things. For each person it's going to be a little bit different in terms of what they carry. That's the way I like to carry things around the con. And then for yourself?
Yeah, for me, I'm not as tall as Sean is. Obviously, he's like 6'1", 6'2". I'm not even 5 feet tall in my bare feet, so I have to travel very differently. So for me, I may or may not carry a backpack, but my backpack is going to be much lighter than Sean's. I'm not going to have nearly as much stuff in there. And then as far as a bag goes, I'm going to be using something like the Walking Dead bag that Sean conveniently found right behind us. Something like that, or the Blood Factory bag, something that size is going to be about as big as I can carry around, because I'm too short to carry the WB bag. Those bags from back in those days, I literally have to tie up because they are too long and they drag on the floor for me. So that doesn't work for me. But a backpack, or if not a backpack, I'll have some sort of kind of just a bag of some sort, kind of like a purse, something that I can dump stuff in. As far as dividing up the weight, I'll carry a bag small like that one, and then that other bag over my other shoulder, so that I'm not hurting my back too much because I'm leaning one way or the other, but it helps even things out. Or the backpack also helps with that. But my backpack is not going to be nearly as heavy as Sean's, and I'm not going to be carrying a WB bag. I have enough trouble maneuvering just carrying the things I do. Sean, because he's taller, he's bigger, he can handle a bigger thing, bigger bags. But for me, I need to be a little more compact than he is. But fortunately, we do work as a team, and we're usually not too far from each other. So if I do come across a bigger item or a big poster or something, he is usually able to handle those things for me.
Right.
So.
And again, it's all what you want. I mean, for us, one of the things about saving time throughout the con is we want to have some sodas with us, some waters with us, some snacks with us, things like that. So we still will eat meals, we'll still eat, even in the convention center, some random, hamburger stand in there or whatever. But we do like to have the option to grab our own sodas, our own waters, when we want to take kind of a mini break where we don't want to go get in a 10-15 minute line. Obviously, if we forgo that, if we say, well, we don't want the hassle of carrying that extra stuff, maybe I wouldn't even need a backpack, just condense everything in the WB bag or something like that. It's really what's going to work best for you. For us, we're spending a lot of time on the floor, some time in the panel rooms. We're transitioning a lot from the things we want to do, walking around the outside area. We've got a car there that we drop off in, and so it's just kind of a system that we've developed over the years. But for me, I would feel really out of place if I didn't have the backpack, the poster tube, the WB bag, and one of these. And I use this quite a bit for books. If they're handing out free comics, or maybe I'm bringing my own comics or trade paperbacks to get signed or whatever, this bag works perfectly where things don't get mangled and bent. They can be in bags and boards and sit at the bottom. Then my WB bag is for throwing in, whether it's t-shirts or exclusives or buttons or stickers or whatever other random stuff. I mean, as it comes to freebies, you just take it and you figure out later if you want it or who wants it. We have enough little kids in our life, friends and nieces and nephews and other friends that are into pop culture things that won't be at Comicon. We know we'll find a home, we can do contests, whatever. So we really don't think about it. They may, if they're handing out He-Man deodorant, we don't think whether we want this or not. We just throw it in the bag and we'll figure it out later when we get back home. So again, to each their own, but that's kind of what we are carrying as we hit the floor.
Yeah, and a couple things on that. So because sometimes we do pick up comic books and not every place has bags and boards. Oftentimes at the bottom of that bag he just has empty bags and boards in there.
Already taped, yeah.
Right, so as he collects those things, if they're worth anything, then he'll put them in their bags and boards and they won't get ruined. And then the other thing is, having those snacks and waters and stuff, the waters can be heavy and they do get heavy, but having them handy, because so many times we may even intend to eat or intend to meet up, but then we find ourselves in some sort of line, whether it's for Hallmark or it's for Hasbro or for a signing or for whatever, and during that time that you're in line, at least you can be snacking and kind of drinking some water and getting kind of rejuvenated. Even though you're stuck standing in a line, you can still make that time useful. Aside from just scrolling through your phone and catching up on what else is going on, you can also rejuvenate, your food and your energy intake and stuff. So
definitely. And that brings us to our last tip for this episode, which is all about kind of saving space. And again, depending on your situation, for us, we'll be driving down. We're not super concerned about saving space because we've got the car. I mean, it can get tight still with the stuff we'll pick up at the con. But especially though, if you're flying out, a good thing to think about doing is if you know that you're going to buy t-shirts there, which is a very common thing for people to do at San Diego Comic-Con. I think we find the people we know, it's not very common that they don't pick up a shirt, whether it be as a freebie from a party or a swag bag or on the floor, an Ant-Man shirt from the Hasbro booth, whatever, or buying a shirt, official Comic-Con merchandise or otherwise. If you know you're going to pick those things up, maybe you could pack a little bit lighter and bring a couple less t-shirts with you. I know that's something, even though we drive down, I started a few years ago. It's just like, I know I won't need, we're going to be there for 8 days. I know I won't need 8 t-shirts because I'll pick up at least 3 t-shirts from giveaways. So who knows what the shirts will be by the end of the week. Obviously, if I don't like them that much, I can buy a shirt I do like. But last year I picked up a couple Ant-Man shirts again from the Hasbro booth. Got a Hateful Eight shirt in the outside area, a couple other things. And so you have that as an option. We just got back again from Disney World. One of the strategies there, because we pack very small. She carries on only. I check a pretty small bag in general. We like to be really light in traveling when we're using airplanes. So if you are flying in, another strategy we use is just simply I brought clothes that I knew I was going to throw away. Older t-shirts, older socks, whatever, things that once I wore them, it was like, well, that was the last wear, and then I threw them in the trash, which gave us a little bit extra space. I probably threw away the equivalent of 2 outfits out of a 9-day trip, and those 2 outfits then made room for a little bit more in terms of, we don't do a ton of souvenir shopping, but it gave us just a little bit more room to be lighter. Checking in a bag on the way out to the show, out to Orlando, it was 35 pounds. On the way back, it was like 37 pounds, so it wasn't like it was a big jump there, but it was able to kind of save some space there. So if you are worried about space, if that is a thing for you and you know you're going to pick up shirts, that's an easy place to save some room.
Right, and like you already said, in regards to condensing space, it is easier to get one thing signed by several people rather than carrying 5 different things that you want to sign by 5 different cast members. So if there is anything that you have that you are going to try to get signed, maybe condensing in that way is going to be helpful as far as space goes. And of course, there's always the option of shipping things back home to yourself. I believe usually, I think it's a FedEx that they have at the convention center. They're set up, they have like a big setup so that they can ship stuff back to people. So if you do find that you are not going to be able to get all your stuff home, that's another option. As far as price, I imagine it's pretty pricey. Fortunately, we've not had to ship things before. But yeah, we have been on our way back and the car has been completely full, where Sean is not even able to drive because we can't get the seat back far enough for him to fit. So I drive home and he's crammed in the passenger seat carrying stuff in his lap because we have so much stuff that we're bringing home. So we know about space being an issue, but we're fortunate in that we are able to have our car with us and we are going to be able to park under the convention center. So that for us is a huge thing that is very important to us. Probably more so than even getting the good rooms or anything like that, is having that parking space and having the ability to have our car with us. But obviously not everybody's in that situation, so just kind of plan ahead, even maybe bring an extra bag with you, like an extra suitcase that's empty that you're going to be filling up and can bring back that way. Or if you find yourself down there, you can go to a Target or someplace, if you Uber or Lyft or something there, in order to get that extra bag so that you can make your way home with.
All right, so that wraps up our tips on San Diego Comic-Con for this episode. Again, much more coming. Again, you follow along with our feed on YouTube as well as iTunes or Stitcher. We'll have more podcasts, more videos, all dedicated to what actually happens when you get at the convention. Obviously, that's where the bulk of the tips are, but these things hopefully help get you ready to get in the mode, all things to do in the weeks leading up to your trip to San Diego Comic-Con, hopefully to help you have the best time possible out there. And so with that now, we're going to turn our attention to our Under the Con. We're going to throw it back. We actually recorded this about a week or so ago as we talked about our time at Phoenix Comic-Con as well as Amazing Las Vegas Comic-Con. So from there then, we want to go to our segment that we call Under the Con. And Under the Con is where we specifically look at a convention in depth that we've covered in recent weeks and talk about some of the things that made it either work or not work. And so we've got 2 cons this week, 2 of our favorite conventions of the year, quite honestly, here in June. It's been a busy June for us already, and it'll be a busy July, obviously. But first up, we are talking about Phoenix Comic-Con 2016. And Phoenix Comic-Con is a show, I don't know what, it's been 5 years that we've been attending that or so.
Something like that.
We have a podcast fully dedicated to both of these conventions, so if you are interested in even more depth about each of these shows, head over to iTunes and Stitcher, and you can find our Phoenix Comic-Con episode or our Amazing Las Vegas episode. But so I say that in part because it's been a couple weeks since Phoenix Comic-Con, so I might have forgotten. There might have been some things we knew when we were recording on the floor there that we've forgotten since then. But Phoenix Comic-Con, it's been several years that we've been there. We love it. It's a really great combination of spectacle and size with relaxation, which is an odd combination. But what I mean by that is it's 4 full days of action with entertainment, hundreds, literally hundreds of panels that go literally till 2 in the morning. I mean, just nonstop action from Thursday on. And all the while, very rarely do you feel like super stressed. Like most things are fairly accessible. Not to say that it's not crowded, and it gets more crowded every year. But it feels pretty accessible. The price is crazy good. It's down in the, I was trying to look up right now and I don't see it still listed because the con has passed now a few weeks, but it was in like the, under $75 range for the 4 days, which is amazing for the amount of entertainment you're having packed in there. And there's lots of fun stuff to do on the floor. I think I speak for both of us, then it's just a favorite show all the way around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's nice because it's similar to Comic-Con, but not nearly to the same extent. It does have kind of that campus feel because several of the hotels that surround the convention center take part in some way. Either they host panels or they have their own activities going on, or there's an arcade, or there's evening comedy shows or different things that are going on in the hotels. So there's plenty of nooks and crannies and different places to go, and they kind of theme the areas too, so you can, if you're interested only in anime, or you're interested in the kids stuff, or you're interested in the cosplay, there's different areas that you can specifically go where you're going to find a lot of what you're interested in. And that's nice to be able to break away like that. And they do use a lot of the convention center and different floors and stuff, so it allows things to be broken up. So like, for example, the Hall of Heroes, which is basically where there's the big autographs, and then the cosplay groups are up there. That's like on the 3rd floor, and you just make your way up the escalator, and sometimes that can be a challenge, but it's there. And if we're looking for cosplay specific stuff, we know that we can go there. And by having it up there, it clears up the floor, so there aren't as many clogs in the arteries on the actual exhibit floor because they're separated in a different area.
Yeah. And that really was all about, it's really nonstop action, and as you said, it's kind of like there's all these separate areas that merge into one big con that's healthy and full of lots of fun things. So with that, why don't we go ahead and take you to the floor. We'll show you a little bit of Hall of Heroes, we'll show you a little bit of the floor and some of the panel rooms. One important note, starting, I believe it was last year really, they no longer allow video in the main big programming rooms. That's where you have kind of more the celebrities of the world that are there. So we don't have, we follow the rules. We don't have any video of that. But besides that, we're going to give you hopefully a good feel for what Phoenix Comic-Con is with some quick footage here.
one that got smushed.
Yes, fair.
Awesome black cat.
Here. based on judgment on which one they put it is, and it's a series, alright.
Maybe I'll just continue the conversation. Yeah, that's
Rattlers are all about it.
Yeah, it's self-defense. Exactly.
they ain't even been a baby.
The ones are like down here.
Brandon probably wants you to check for his
I did warn Stefan that that might be the case.
I just saw her earlier, and I had no idea who she was.
I'm joking, Tom.
There's a dog in it.
You're actually thinking of all the people that we've got. It's for him.
All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that look. To give you just a feel for it, I mean, anytime we do these under the cons, it's, you know, it's nothing quite the same as being there, obviously, but it gives you a feel. And so with that, to look at some of the things we picked up on the floor, to talk about some of the trends. So we definitely saw some stuff that was, you know, just, I don't want to say older stuff, but it's definitely a little bit more of a vintagey feel. Picked up tons of comics. This is not anywhere near what we actually picked up, but just we're out of room up here, but just tons of old school, you know, 50-cent, dollar bin, quarter bin even types of comics there. There was a good selection of wall books, not much of a selection of newer books outside of trades. That's kind of been a trend in conventions in general is, you know, if you're looking to pick up this week's comics, really conventions are no longer the best place to do that. You know, you kind of have to hit the comic shop before you go, ironically, to the Comicon. But as I said, picked up the Blood Factory bag. Some a little bit older, not that these are old figures here, but, you know, on Sunday, there were some good sales, and we heard from vendors that they did well. But that being said, we found several figures like this, some Marvel Legends, not ones that we needed, but these were $5 each. So these were 20 at the beginning of the con. They were 20 at every other con we've been to. By the end of the weekend, actually these are 25. They ended up being $5 because people just didn't want to pack them up. The the Funko reaction figures, we found a handful of Breaking Bad and Flash and things like that, Rocky Horror Picture Show. Boy, they ended up being $2.50. It was like 4 for $10. They got marked down to something like $4, and then if you got 4, you got them for 2 for.
No, they're not perfect. Obviously,
No.
they're bowed and stuff, but they're figures
Yeah.
that we haven't picked up. They weren't important enough to us to pay the $10 or
Right.
more for them. So
And picked up some new toys, you know, some Marvel Legends. Not much in that way. Marvel Legends Infinite Series, the smaller figures. There was a decent representation of things like Star Wars Black Series, DC collectibles, all at about standard convention price, which is, you know, $20 for a Marvel Legends. You know, much more for the harder to find ones, obviously. Also, we always love superhero stuff when they are at cons. Picked up a few hats. I'm wearing one here. Picked up a couple more here. You picked up a shirt from them as well, which we don't have on display here, but they always have, to me, my favorite stuff. I really, really like superhero stuff. They are a must-stop for me at conventions for the quality of the clothes, the quality of the hats, just they're long-lasting, they're durable, and so we really only see them anymore at Phoenix Comic-Con and San Diego Comic-Con. But when we do see their booth, and obviously you can buy from them online, they do a thing. What was it this year? $60, I think it was, and you got a free $25 gift card, which we used to then buy another hat, and they shipped it already to us there. There was a decent, I shouldn't even say decent, a really big amount of independent artist creators. Whether it be professional comic book artists, they're signing, you know, the Art Adams of the world or the George Perez's of the world, or people just kind of, you know, I'm not sure about this one in particular, but doing their hobbies and, you know, having smaller booths of fun little representations. Whoops, just a second.
Should.
Maybe it's already the heat has sealed it.
Maybe.
But a little jewelry box there. And just fun, like, you know, lots of geeky necklaces and bracelets and hair berets there you go. You know, and so fun stuff like that. I mean, those unique things that you find at a show like Phoenix that has such a large artist alley that's full of a lot of crafty things, you can't really, you know, plan for that even, because there's things like we've never seen that for as many conventions as we go to. Well over 50 last year. We've never seen that before, and it was a really cool little thing to find there. And then the Supply Pod people were there. They do a monthly subscription. It's actually every other month subscription box, which is really cool. And they had a big sale on Sunday. So these boxes were going for, what was it, $20 at the con. And then they went down to 2 for $20 on Sunday. And they have the Phoenix Comic-Con exclusive shirt, which was cool. And then they had different themes of superheroes and space and stuff. So for that, you know, a Batman v Superman shirt and some other little spacey things in here, a comic, Mars, where's the probes at, all sorts of fun little things. There was a Batman, the Psychology of Batman book that we got also in that, and fun stuff there. So definitely check them out. Supply Pod, they really focus on connecting with space, actually, so it's kind of an interesting deal. But
in science, real science.
Yeah. And so in general, I mean, I enjoyed the floor, I liked it, and then I enjoyed our time in panels. I mean, all the way around, it was one of those cons when we came to Sunday, I was sad to leave and wish we could go back to it.
Yeah, and we do also enjoy because there are different restaurants in the area, and it's a really great area for their comic book stores and that and pop culture scene in that area. So we don't often have time to, but when we do, it's nice to be able to venture off and be able to find a comic book store or different coffee shops that are themed towards pop culture, superhero stuff. So for all those reasons, and the fact that the people who put on Phoenix Comic-Con are so responsive to customer feedback and things, for all those reasons, it's one of our favorites, and we do enjoy it, even though it is like a 4.5-hour drive for us. Yeah,
it's a bit of a drive. I mean, with stops and grabbing a bite to eat and stuff, it's about a 6-hour journey that we take, and they really won us over early on because of, you know, they had good guests, they had a wide range of activities, they had a great floor, and then the customer service, like they send surveys out asking like, okay, what talent do you want us to try and book, and how much will you pay? Because obviously, you know, a Mark Hamill doesn't come to one of these conventions without having a set price of what they're going to charge for photos and autographs. So they're really trying to see what their customers want. You know, there was the somebody pulling the fire alarm, and you know, they extended the hours on a Sunday, and I'm sure the vendors weren't happy about that. I mean, although it won us over as fans forever with the decision to stay open an extra hour to give us back that time. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of vendors weren't excited about it.
That was several years ago.
Yeah, several years ago. But I mean, that just kind of speaks to the quality of, I feel like it really is an in-and-out quality show in terms of they want to make sure you're having a good time, and they will make sure that you enjoy yourself to the best of their abilities. And obviously as the show grows, there's growing pains, and that's always, you know, it's easy to have things things run more smoothly when you have, a much smaller crowd there. So it gets more competitive, more challenging. But I feel like they're really responsive. I feel like they're very professional for being an independently run con. In anything, but they seem way more professional than some of the dealings we've had with other cons that are more corporate or things like that. And so it's really interesting how professional they are and how they handle their business, and it definitely makes us big fans, and can't wait to get back out there for Fan Fest, which is a smaller version of their show, which will be in October. Yeah, like October 22nd, 23rd. And then back again next May. It moves to Memorial Day next year for Phoenix Comicon 2017. So follow along with us. We'll talk lots about it, and I can't imagine we won't be there.
Right, and again, we talk more detail about stuff on the podcast. So if you want more info, go there, because we have one completely dedicated to
version. Yeah, the talk show, for those of you that might be tuning in for the first time just because you're interested in Phoenix or Vegas Comic-Con or San Diego Comic-Con tips, this is an abbreviated version to what we do, in which normally an hour on just one convention. So now moving over to what we just got back from. We just returned from amazing Las Vegas Comic-Con. This convention is part of the amazing Comicon brand. They have conventions in Oklahoma, Houston, Arizona was the original down there in Phoenix and Mesa, and then they've extended to Hawaii as well, out to Oahu. So they've got a whole brand going on. We've really grown to enjoy this convention a lot. What I said on the podcast and what we've talked about to a lot of people when they ask us, like, well, what's the Comicon brand all about? They have a really clear, mission statement in terms of what they try to provide. Is the goal is connecting to the architects of pop culture. So it's about kind of finding the people that created the things that we love in TV and movies, in those specifically superhero genres, and bringing them there. So, for example, at this most recent con, you had someone like Ken Levin that was there at day one of Preacher and has kind of marched it through, and now an executive producer with Preacher, the AMC TV show. And that's like a perfect example of the types of things they try to do. Civil War, we just had the Captain America Civil War film. We've got Civil War 2 in the comics. And so they had a panel. You had an original Civil War artist in Steve McNiven. You had Charles Soule and Jim Chung, who worked on the current Civil War. And you've got them all kind of tying together about this topic, this big topic. And so really fun for all those reasons. Rick Hoberg was there, and he was one of my favorites to see at the con, was just because he's one of the original artists of Star Wars comics, Invaders, All-Star Squadron, and a ton more things. But it was just great to see him, to get him to sign some stuff. And it's weird when you're around. For me, I'm more starstruck in a lot of ways about being around someone like that was there at the ground floor, than someone like, let's say, if we saw Daisy Ridley right now. Nothing to take from her, she's amazing, but it's just the fact that this is somebody that truly is an architect of pop culture. It is somebody that was there at the beginning as creators. Chris Claremont was there. So if you saw X-Men Apocalypse, this is where it comes from, meaning X-Men, so much of what we associate with X-Men in the modern day came from the mind. Chris Claremont's not the original creator of the X-Men, but he was there. He had the most prolific run of that. And then to have him there, to be able to interact with him. Kevin Eastman. Kevin Eastman is so much of what we know of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in terms of marching them through. He even had a brief little cameo in the most recent movie. And so having these people there is really cool, and it's so much of what the show is about.
Yeah, you're wanting a show where you're getting all the Hollywood stars and the main Hollywood people. This isn't the show for you, but yeah, if you're interested in the roots of what you're liking in Hollywood, this is a good show to go to. And they're always really good about bringing that type of talent, and it's enjoyable. And the show is large enough that they have panels and there's plenty to do, but it's small enough where it's not overwhelming and the aisles aren't crowded, and there's just room to maneuver and things to do.
So with that, why don't we take you to the Las Vegas Convention Center. So this year, the con moved to a new location from South Point. So if you've gone in the past and maybe weren't able to attend this year, they moved over to the Las Vegas Convention Center. Really nice layout there. It's connected to Westgate Casino, which is fun if you want to run over. It's a little bit of a walk, but run over, grab some food over there or some gambling. But that said, let's go ahead and take you to the floor of Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con. Take a little bit of a look at maybe some of the panel setup and just some of the fun creators and fun that we saw on the floor.
we are willing to accept that this character isn't bad, but she's chaotic. Like she can be both. And I think a lot of, we as guys, we have the Punisher, we have Wolverine, we have all these characters that can be heroic and crazy at the same time, and you don't question it. And Harley was kind of the first one of female characters that were about to
yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
idea. I've read it in years.
Anyway, but the point I'm trying to make is that you didn't create the characters, but the characters that everybody knows and the stories that everybody loves and are all created by you.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it. I didn't really much more going beyond that.
Well, they're also about
and those
500
stories,
other characters since then that I didn't.
Right. But all of those stories that you developed, they're still building off of those. They're not making a lot of new stories. They're just kind of mining what you guys did in your 17 or so years, 16 years, however many years.
There's so many ways I could go with the next reply, the next response to that, but I think
It's just you and me. You know,
Yeah.
nobody's listening. Just go for it.
nobody has any recording devices whatsoever. No, not in this modern age.
Okay, so another interesting thing about what you guys did is you were kind of the first. Now all the comic books are developed. They're into offices. There's the X office.
All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that look. Again, just like with Phoenix, just a small little slice. It's hard to encapsulate 3 full days of action and fun at Amazing Las Vegas into just a few minutes here as we talk about it. Again, we have a full podcast dedicated to the show that you can check out. Some quick things to share just from the floor of some of our findings. And as I said, a big part for us was getting things signed. So Rick Hoberg was one. Visiting with Charles Soule and getting him to sign some things was another highlight. We've visited with Steve McNiven in the past, and many of the other people there actually we've seen at some show here. One of the luxuries of going to so many cons over the years has been that the people we need to meet is getting less and less in terms of that feeling. They had some great variants there as well. Amazing always has some. So you got your Deadpool, Spider-Man, Batman Rebirth. Rebirth was definitely a part of it. And then we just picked up a couple variants from other cons that Amazing has done that are from the old days, if you will. New toys definitely there and some really good prices on them. Picked up Iron Man Legends, $18. Picked up a couple Star Wars Force Awakens figures that we'd not seen out and about too much yet for $6 and $8, so that was good. And then Maxim Comics had a really great setup. They always have a really great setup actually at Amazing. They always are kind of front and center with their giant Hulk statue and Batman statue and all sorts of cosplayers there. It really is like a centralized meet and greet experience, like something like you'd have at Disneyland. But they also had a lot of great t-shirts for $10 each, and these are We Love Fine and Marvel and other things. So We Love Fine Moon Knight,
Mighty Fine Captain Marvel,
We Love Fine
Spider-Gwen,
and then a Marvel Luke Cage there. So that was pretty awesome and cool to find. Also picked up a really cool Ant-Man shirt as well, and it was $10, so $50 for 5 shirts that would be, you know, 20, 25, $30 at another convention. So that was really cool to find as well. And then picked up Letter 44, haven't read that yet, from Charles Soule. Nice trade. There's just so many trades there. Picked up a couple Preacher trades, but getting caught up on that. And so it was just anything you wanted was there. Things were very obtainable, meaning like it was a healthy crowd. Like if you check out our social media, you'll see that there was good lines and healthy lines for the Claremonts of the world, the McNivens and all these people. But nothing was like overwhelming where you felt like it had to dominate your convention and you couldn't experience anything. You could wander into panels. They're really good. I love how they have their panels set up. They've got the nice decent sized panel room there, great stage setup with graphics and everything, very professional, but they'll allow people to just kind of be on the side, standing, or even sitting off to the sides, which is great because it's so frustrating. I understand there's different rules with different fire marshals and things like that, but it's so frustrating when you're at a con and there's just tons of open space along the walkways and the aisles, and they just don't let anybody even stand against there, even if it's a limited amount. Just no one's allowed to stand. And so here they're really good. They want to get their fans in. I mean, really, they're trying to put together the most fan-friendly experience possible. They do focus on kids on their Sunday Kids Day, and just throughout, they're trying to connect all these pieces to give people really the roots of comic history and roots of pop culture in so many ways. And that's why we love the show. That's why we really want to get out to even Houston or Hawaii. I mean, obviously Hawaii is super attractive because it's a Hawaii, but I mean, I even want to get to the Houston show or the Oklahoma show just because they do such a good job of putting together. So I'd love to go to one of their conventions every month if we could. So obviously limitations of travel and finances and all that are a real thing. So as it stands, we do our one show a year right now, Vegas, because Arizona has moved its date over the last few years and conflicts with some other cons that we cover. But we love it. We highly recommend it. If there's any way for you to get out there, definitely check it out.
And yeah, and actually a unique experience this year, there actually was some Hollywood presence. Nick Cage was there on Friday with his family, and that was kind of interesting with him just walking the floor, and he wasn't getting too bombarded. He had his personal security there who kind of kept people at bay if necessary, but that was kind of interesting just seeing him walk the floor, just bouncing from one vendor to another, buying random things and stuff. So in this particular year, there was a Hollywood presence on the floor.
Yeah, and he was carrying around, or not carrying around, he was buying like Incredible Hulk #1, Fantastic Four #1. Like, I mean, this guy was buying some serious stuff there, so that was cool to see. And yeah, he was super affable and outgoing and all that. So great time. Definitely check out our podcast if you're interested in more depth. Again, we spent about an hour there, I think, talking about this show. So had a really good time. Can't wait to get back out to their next show. And for both the conventions, we talked about 3 great conventions today, 3 of conventions that are definitely at our top list. For those that may not follow along with this too closely, I mean, last year I think we covered somewhere like 53, 54 conventions. This year we're already at 34, 35 conventions that we've covered. So we hit a lot of shows. So when shows make their way to the kind of the top echelon of the group, it says a lot. And in all sincerity, all 3 of the shows we're talking about today are at that level, that they all bring kind of their own unique, they're all very different, but they all bring something very unique and exciting. And so yeah, thanks for tuning in there. So if you're interested in more talk, or you're interested in conversations about the SoCal park scene, because we talk a lot about Disneyland, Knott's, Universal, all of that, you can subscribe to this channel where we come to you as frequently as possible every week with Park Talk or Con Talk. We try to alternate during the normal part of the year. Please help support us by spreading the word, telling your friends if they're interested in conventions, whether it be San Diego, Amazing, Phoenix, or any others. Tell them what we do, let them check us out, and then also, as I said, on the park scene there as well. Again, if you're interested in more in-depth conversation about all this, you can head over to our iTunes or Stitcher, where we have over 150 episodes of conversation about parks and cons, all of that in 2 years. So about 75 episodes a year, so we crank out the content over there. You can find us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope, all of them Parks and Cons. Definitely for San Diego Comicon, we will have a lot from all 4 of those vehicles during everything from the Monday before to the Monday after, so follow along there. Again, thank you for joining us, and until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.